Okay, hello. All right. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Paris, and this is Diego. We work for Google. Today, we're excited to tell a little bit about some of the multi-modal features we've built for Gemini Android Studio. Our hope is that after this talk, you can walk away with some ideas about how to integrate AI into your workflow, specifically to build UI. So let's get started. Before we get into the details about today's talk, just want to basically tell you a little bit about ourselves. So bonjour, I'm Paris. I am a product manager at Google, and I, along with Diego, lead the UI tools team in Android Studio. I'm based in California, but I'm originally from Taipei, Taiwan. Been obsessed with tennis for the last 3 years, so if anyone wants to talk to me about that afterwards, we should. In my professional life, I actually was a UX designer, so it's actually been kind of cool for me to, because I have personal experiences in this designer-developer relationship, so it's kind of cool for me to specifically build tools that are helping with that in my daily life now. And have to mention this joke because I'm Paris and can finally use the hashtag Paris in Paris, so very excited to be here.
And hello everyone. So my name is Diego. I work with Paris in UI tools, so I'm the TL for the team. I'm a software engineer at Google, and I've been working in Android Studio for 11 years. So I'm originally from Madrid, but I've been living in London, where I'm based for 17 years now. I've been obsessed for a long time with F1, and unfortunately I will be missing the race this weekend.
All right, we're back. So this is the brief agenda of what we'll go through today. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the concepts and features that we're introducing. And then Diego is going to do a live demo, very brave. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the future of things that we're actually building currently, and then open up for a Q&A. All right, so what are some new AI features we want to tell you about UI development? Before we get started, first and foremost, hopefully you all know what Gemini Android Studio is. If you didn't, Gemini Android Studio is an AI coding companion that helps you to build high-quality apps faster. What our team has been doing is essentially, obviously there's the chat interface where you can ask specific questions about Android, but also we've been integrating into a lot of the IDE features like autocomplete, transform, code suggestion, as well as maybe you can ask Gemini about your build errors, crashes. The idea is that we want it to be able to provide AI assistance at every stage of the software developer lifecycle. And today we're going to focus on UI development. Now this is a very, I think, generalized overview of what stages that we think the developer goes through in every time you build a UI, starting from when the designer hands off the spec, maybe a design system in Figma or a screenshot to you, and then to you then having to understand what are the details that are in the spec, to set up the developer environment, maybe in Android Studio, maybe do some research about the framework that you need to use to be able to achieve the results the designer are looking for, then start implementation, iteration, debug, and extend and scale that for performance and maybe different form factors. So through a lot of UX research, this is what our team looks at in terms of the subtests that we think a developer usually goes through in terms of trying to achieve a really beautiful design for Android. So then what we did as a team is we look at all these different subtasks and said, are there places where we think we can inject some of the Gemini capabilities to really help you perhaps reduce the duplicate tasks that you have to do, or look at things that I think Gemini will do really well and help you get started quickly. So today we're going to introduce you in purple 3 kind of general different features. So the multi-modal in Gemini Chat, compose preview generation with Gemini, as well as transform UI with Gemini, as well as the ones in gray, which are prompt library, context drawer, multi-file attachments. These are existing Gemini Android Studio, not specific to UI development, but we feel like there are ways that you can leverage it to really help accelerate your workflow. So let me get started. So let's look at the beginning stages. Let's say a designer hands you off this particular design system. You see that there's themes and colors, typography, different components. Maybe there's a screen that has adjustment about different tokens. And the idea is right now you probably then will start looking into, okay, what existing components are already in my projects that I can use, or do I need to build new components? Are there different frameworks I should be using? And so this is where we introduce the multi-modal and Gemini Chat. the idea is we want you to be able to translate and understand that spec much more easier, so you can kind of think. I have some examples here. I included a screen and I asked, oh, do you recommend using material free to build this screen? And it might give you some idea about why or why not, depending on your design system. Or I just take a screenshot of that color theme design, and I ask, can you extract the colors from this image and put it into the colors.kt file? So that just saves some time in terms of like trying to copy and paste different color values. And of course, our biggest, I think, focus here is the idea of image to code. So we really want to be able to help a developer go from a spec or a sketch into a working prototype so you can get to the iteration in the zone really fast. And so just a little bit more about that use case. We actually been working really closely with our model team to help improve Gemini's model capabilities to allow specifically one for Gemini to understand Android app layouts. So understand what's a material button, what's a text among the other elements so that it can understand, oh, this is actually for Android. On the other side, we want to make sure that the code that's getting generated is actually high quality and follows best practices like accessibility or other concerns. So they've been actually experimenting with different reinforcement learning to be able to have an AI judge that evaluates the code generated so that this specific task is something that we continue to work towards. So that's Gemini multimodal in Gemini Chat, and now we're going to talk about when you're actually starting to iterate and build the UI. So the assumption is you now start coding, and so if you're familiar with specifically all the Compose tools, you probably learned about Compose Preview, and that's also something that our team works on. And we do think that Compose Preview is something that can really help accelerate your design lifecycle, just because every change you make, it renders it right there. It also helps you look at different configurations across screen sizes. So one of the things that we've heard about Compose Preview is that coming up with the mock data and just in terms of setting up parameters can be really time-consuming. So one of the things that we want to also work on is basically get you in that mode really quickly. And so Diego later will show this, but the idea is we have Compose Preview generated by Gemini to help you with faster iteration, as well as more contextual data based on what your composables is about. Then a third thing, which this is currently still in experimental, but we're likely going to launch this soon, is the idea that now let's say you have a preview and I have already built the UI here, but potentially here, what happens is maybe you're comparing the spec with the implementation of your UI, and there's like different places that you need UI modification, or maybe your designers say, hey, actually, can we try this different things, etc. So the idea here is we want to build a feature that's almost like a thinking partner with you when you're building UI. We're calling it Transform UI with Gemini, and the idea is essentially it can extract information that potentially is not in the code. So you can think about like positions or things that are visually available, and you can ask it to come up with suggestions for how to modify. So things like, how do I align these two buttons? Or in this case, I said, can you add another navigation add and call settings? And it was able to inject code based on the contextual understanding of my preview, as well as the code in my project. All right, so that's kind of the UI development features that I've talked about, and this is the other ones that just kind of wanted to mention. So if you don't know already, there's this feature called the prompt library. The idea is that you can add a lot of common reusable prompts related to, in our case, UI development, that could just kind of easily, you don't have to rewrite those prompts every single time. You can also share with your team. This separate one is called add file and context drawer. The idea here is that you want to be able to, like, I think Gemini works really well, especially if it knows exactly what context you should be using. So if you are trying to build a screen, but you want it to use your own design system or a custom button, you should be able to add those files and point it to say, hey, please look at these design systems and then create something for me based on these. All right, so we're getting to the exciting part of this talk. I'm going to hand it over to Diego for some demos.
Cool, thank you. So let's do some demos. Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is what Paris has been talking about, a few demos using Gemini. And again, the idea is this is not going to generate your final product. We are not there it's going to generate your final UI. But you're going to see how it's going to help you to actually iterate faster. And it's going to help you in a few situations where you needed to write a lot of boilerplate code. And it just basically is going to save you time. So that's what we are aiming to help with here. So the first thing that I'm going to use is the generate preview feature that Paris talked about. And again, if you have used the compose preview, adding the annotation is not particularly difficult. So that is not what we are trying to fix here. But usually, again, the preview doesn't have access to the network, so you cannot basically make network requests. So you need to populate it with some data so you see how it looks. So that's what we are going to do here. So let me open this file. So yeah, so I have this composable, which is a very simple composable that I created earlier, which is a news card. So it has a title, it has some content, an author, what you will expect. And it doesn't have a preview, but you see how it looks. So basically what I'm going to do now is if you right-click in the composable in Gemini, you have this generate news card preview now. So if you click it, it's going to send a request, and hopefully it will come back with something very quickly. So that's a preview, very simple one. Again, nothing too ambitious here. And now it will compile, it renders, and you get that. So again, it saved me basically a few seconds. It didn't save much time. But now we can do a few more interesting things. So for example, this content is not particularly representative of what news will be. So let's try something. So let's go to Gemini and ask it to generate code. And it's change the news and make them about recent financial events, for example. It's not going to use any real data, but it's going to come up with something more realistic. Again, this is not searching for actual news, but you see that it changed it. So if I accept the changes now, it will recompile. And you see this is more representative. So now I have a paragraph, the title, even the author is more realistic. So a small improvement. But let's see one more thing that I can do. So again, if I go to Gemini, or you can use the shortcut, and now I'm going to say, create a new preview with 10 different news. So what I'm trying to do here is I want to see how my screen will actually look populated with more stuff. So I did something here. It's going to reuse the same news. Sometimes it tends to do that because I wasn't specific enough. But yeah, you see that now I have a full screen. And let's see if this actually works. So you can go here and you can start the Compose Preview Interactive mode. And you see that, again, it creates a list. You can scroll. You see the bouncing. So yes, this is already more representative. So again, you have saved some time. And this is where it gets really good at. One advice, as you can see here, is this can use any parameters that you put in any composable. It can use any data class, or it can do more complex things. But one advice is I added some documentation here. So as for humans, Gemini will use that documentation, and it will help to generate more realistic data. So you can put any comments there, and if you basically explain what you want, it will come out with the data much faster. OK, so that's for the Gemini preview. Let me see. OK, so the next thing that I want to show is not particularly new. It's, again, using the Gemini screen. So I'm going to actually remove the previous context because I don't want this to be there. And I'm going to use it to, again, generate screens very fast. So you saw that I coded before this news card. So now what I want to do is actually get Gemini to do that for me, so I don't have to code it again. So I have this prompt. I can show you what it is. So what I'm asking is, generate a new composable for a news card. So what I said before, it should contain a title and all the data that I want. And then I added a couple of things that I will show you later what I say there. But if you want to use resources, I'm telling Gemini, use these ones. And if you use any experimental APIs, make sure that you add a certain annotation. So let's ask Gemini to do it. So we send a submit, and it comes with code. So far, so good. Looks like it used a car, a column, and it even came up with sample data without me asking, so that's nice. So now I can click this button here that will add a file. And now let's see. OK, so now let's build. OK. So it came up with actually multiple previews. So it shows my news card in light and dark mode. So that's useful. And without me asking, which is what I needed to do before, it came up with the screen. So now I can do, again, start interactive preview. Yeah, that looks good. Again, populated with data. So again, saving data, which is kind of the theme that you are seeing that we are trying here. But let's not make this all about the news. So let's try with something different. So I have another prompt here. And now I'm going to try something slightly different, which is, again, generate a composable for a sign-up screen. And I basically tell it what I want there, and it's going to come up with something. So let's see. So we repeat the same flow. It's coming up with something. It also created a preview. So yeah, thanks for that, Gemini. And now if I build, let me close Gemini. So that's my sign-up screen. So it looks reasonable. It's not perfect, so it's not what I will do probably, but like it's a good starting point. And again, if I go to Start Interactive Preview, which I keep using, yes, it's usable, everything works, date of birth, okay, perfect. So that's good, but let's try something a little bit better, which says now let's ask Gemini to actually make this a little bit better. So we go back to the same prompt and say like, let's say add validation to the email field and show an animated message if invalid. So let's see. So I'm asking Gemini to change my code now because I'm not super happy about this. It sends the query. And it added a few things. So pattern, it seems that it's going to try to use a regular expression. Animated visibility, so it's trying to do some animation. Let's see. Okay, so and now is invalid email. Did it mess it up? I guess that it forgot to add the is invalid email. So let me try again. Let me give it one more try, and if not, then we can move on. So add validation for the email field. This can happen again, like Gemini sometimes can get things wrong. So again, it looks reasonable. Let's see if now it got it right. It did add something, it did compile. Is it validating? Oh, it is validating. So again, you see, it took, yes, 2 tries, but it saved me time, and I didn't need to write this code, so it's a good starting point. So yeah. So one last example that I want to use in the future is, so I'm going to create yet another screen. So I'm going to say create a new splash screen, and I'm going to say compose, just in case so it doesn't try to generate an activity for my application. And I'm going to use this feature, which I'll call context markers that Paris mentioned before. So you can add to the prompt any code that is part of your project or any files. So I'm going to add this file that is called facts. And I'll show you what it contains in a minute. But let's ask Gemini first to create it. It created a preview with a text. That's reasonable. So let's copy it and let's add it to my project. So let's add it here. So splash screen. Okay. Let's build. Okay. So again, didn't spend any time. It created using the same logo. So what does the facts file contain? And I wanted to show this because I think that it might be useful. And you see it also, it added this comment that says this is for demo purposes. So we'll see where that actually comes from. So if I open the file, it's basically something that I might want to reuse across all my prompts. So I've been doing this for a while, so you see that I generated already multiple screens. So this is some things that are common to all my screens, so I don't have to keep typing it. So one of the things is I said my company logo is this, so if you want to use it, this is my resource. At the top of every new file, add a small comment saying this is for demo purposes. Again, this can be at the copyright, it can be anything that you want to put in there. And also the name of my company. So I don't need to keep reminding Gemini what the name of my company is. So this is another useful feature. And again, you don't need to keep typing it, so you can use these context markers to add additional context. And yes, since we are talking about context, and Paris mentioned this earlier, here in the bottom, you have the context drawer. And here, a studio will tell you what is sent into Gemini. So you know exactly what information is being shared. So in this case, because I said share the facts.txt, it is there. But you also see that by default, the current file, the one that is open next to it, so in this case, if I do a splash screen, it will be being shared. And also you can say, you can select recent files, and that will basically select everything that you have opened recently, like everything that you are working on, it will be sent. So this is another way of actually making the context better, so you can tell to Gemini what you want to modify and what you are working on. So yeah, so that's it. Okay, so let me close this. So now I'm going to move on into one of the new things that we've been working on, and it's the use of multimodal in Gemini to generate screens. So up until now, I've been doing text to screen. Well, we can do things that are a bit more interesting, like image to screen, which is what Paris has mentioned before. So I'm going to basically, well, first I'm going to not send that, because I don't want that file to be sent again. And then I'm going to get this prompt that I have here, which says, generate a Jetpack Compose screen for the given image, and it must respect the overall positioning of the components. And now I'm going to attach an image, obviously. So I have in mocks, I have this calculator mock, which I can show you how it looks. This is 5 minutes ago what I could draw. So, I mean, it resembles a calculator, more or less. And then let's see what Gemini can do with it. So let me close this, and let's ask Gemini to generate that. So it's coming up with things. So it has a display value. It seems that it's trying to come up with the buttons. So let's add it and see what it came up with. Close enough. I mean, it's not perfect, so you will need to modify it. I'm not saying that you should ship this, but like you can see that it saved me time and I didn't need to do this. So now it doesn't seem that it added any behavior, so I'm going to try something slightly risky, which is I'm going to tell Gemini, implement simple addition. This might or might not work, but let's see. Okay. So it did try something, so it's modifying. I'm not going to code review this at the moment, so I'm just going to risk it. Yeah. So it did change something. So calculate. Let's do live debugging, because that's always fun. So what is it complain about? Yeah, but like this shouldn't be a composable. Anything else? Okay, so there are some more errors. I'm not going to bore you like debugging this. I could try it again, and it will sometimes like get to implement like the basic functionality. So you can see how using this can get you into the state. So yeah, like just in the spirit of like not stopping the demo here, I'm going to move on from this. But I want to show one more thing with images. So that's the last thing that I want to show, and it's another useful thing. So I have this screen, which is called Theme Preview. So you see it's basically a bunch of like random components that I had in my application, and it looks like this. So another use of multimodal would be, for example, I'm going to say this prompt, which is update the current file theme to match the colors in the image attached. So, and I'm going to attach an image, and I have here instructions. I have like a bunch of like different color selections, if you see at the top. So I'm going to pick this one just for no particular reason, and let's see if it can do it. So I'm going to submit it. Oh, it's giving me a div, which is not what I want. Okay, let me try again. Give me the full code. Let's see, let's try again. So now at least it's trying to generate the full code. It contains all the components that I had before, so that's looking a little bit better. Let's see. It's taking a while. Just a bit more, a few more components, a lot of colors. Okay, let's see. Let me close this. So yeah, it did change it to match the colors, so I didn't need to be analyzing the different colors, and it created a reasonable theme. Like, again, do you want to ship this? Maybe no, maybe you want to tweak it, but like you got the colors straight away and they are all compatible and it looks nice. So yeah, this is another nice feature. Now, I want to talk about something that we haven't shipped yet, and it's for a reason, which is the transform. So if you click in the preview, so Paris mentioned before, but we have this send preview to Gemini, and now you can ask questions about the image as well. So I'm going to try something which is change the color of the bottom leftmost shape to blue. So I'm asking about like positioning, something that is not implicit from the code, but you can look in the image. Let's see. Well, it said modify, but it didn't do it. Again, we haven't shipped it for a reason, but yeah. So if you ask again, like, yeah, it might change the code. Sometimes it will change something else, but again, like, we are iterating on this, and you can get that. So now you can ask questions about like things that are not obvious from the code. So it got the shape right. So it knew about which shape I was talking about. It just decided that it was going to comment modify for no reason. But anyway, that's another thing that I think that it will be very useful in the future. So yeah, so that's it for the live demos, and now Paris is going to talk a little bit more about what is coming next.
Thank you, Diego. Very exciting, and just to prove that it's a live demo, that's why there are things that didn't work. But right, so I'm going to tell you now a little bit more about the future, and I guess caveat, as you probably all know, I feel like AI is definitely rapidly changing, and so we are constantly experimenting. So what I said today could change tomorrow, but this is the current state of some of the things that I want to show you that we're in progress and thinking about. So going back to this framework and this flow of UI development, this is going to be the constant thing among other changing, I think, landscape. So our team is always trying to think where we can bring the most value to you across developer workflow. And so some of the things that you might notice is that a lot of things we show right now are in the beginning stages. And so we also want to explore some of the workflows with after you've actually created some of these UI. So one thing that we're exploring, for example, is if you don't know, there's a feature called UI check mode and compose preview. But obviously, I'm sure you can get a lot of these accessibility or adaptive issues otherwise. But the idea of that feature is that once you've built your UI, we audit the UI with common issues that are potentially worth noting. And so what it does, in this case, it flags the different issues that you should try to fix for this UI to be usable for a lot of the end users. And so we're trying to think, oh, can Gemini come in here and actually help you address the issue in terms of not just only flagging it. So what we do, we're going to test with essentially passing in some of the accessibility guidelines, passing in your actual preview, as well as the code to see if it can address quick fixes to some of these UI issues. A different area we're looking at is, I think, Android devices, the ecosystem is so rich, and especially now we have more and more form factors like watches or XR devices. So once you finish building your UI for the phone, can we actually help you get quicker into building for other form factors? So in this case, we're also experimenting with based on your app UI, based on the project artifacts that are in your project, can we actually make a adaptive screen or make a smaller screen so that you can get started with those modules really quickly? One more little thing, I think, some of the things that we find it could be interesting is also, we have multi-model inputs. Can we also have multi-model outputs? So can Gemini actually help? You saw that Diego had the factstat XML file where it's pointing to the logos that you should be using, but there's no reason why, based on what we know about your composable, if it's a news article, we might know that you want to use specific imagery based on that UI. So can we actually help you generate the right icons and imagery when we're building these components? Finally, we also want to make sure, like you said, some features are unstable, so we want to continue to improve the accuracy about our existing features. So things like image to code or compute preview and generations. The idea is that we want to, right now you're seeing kind of like one-shot response, but can we actually feed the results back into Gemini and tell it, oh, maybe this part you didn't do it correctly, this part didn't actually render the preview, and then essentially loop until it actually have a good result. So just walk through an example about things we've actually been exploring. Oh, before I do that, yes, love to hear ideas actually after the talk if there are any things that you think, specific things that we should actually focus on and experiment. But yes, maybe this wasn't updated. All right, so yeah, this is the part I was talking about. So yeah, to give you an example about some of the kind of agent maybe, or just loop workflow we're looking at. So for example, for image to code, what we explore is, so after you upload a design, you saw that it outputs some code. We're gonna, potentially there are some times where Gradle will fail. So we wanna make sure, if it does, we're gonna send it back and try it again. And then after Gradle builds, sometimes preview won't render. So we're gonna say, okay, please loop back until pre-renders. Then we're going to ask Gemini to compare that pre-rendering with the input design and make changes based on the diff and result, and essentially make sure that it's as close as possible, and then loop back until it does. And so I just want to show you some example. This is done a while back, but essentially we've been kind of exploring, based on that loop, how many success does it take for Gradle to render? So this on the left side is the input image, on the right side is the output. So you see there's a lot more that we need to do here, but I thought it might be interesting in terms of some of the things that we've kind of explored and looked at. And so we found that it actually usually seems to do well with higher contrast images. And so these are the failures that it really leads into, and then so we just try to see what are the places that we can actually improve that process. But here is definitely love to hear ideas after the talk if you have other, especially pain point that you are looking at when you build UI for Android. And this is a final note because we're talking about the future. So this was announced yesterday, but I think it's in preview for a while. So we're going to watch a cool sizzle about Gemini Android Studio for business. Let's do it. Yeah, so essentially, I think some developers have told us that because of potentially company policy, you won't be able to use the current public version of Gemini Android Studio. And so the team has been hard at work to be able to make it enterprise compliance. So if you are interested, go to the link that you just saw, or it's on Android Studio website to learn more. Okay. All right, so that actually concludes the talk. Thank you all for listening. We're here to take questions, if any. No.
Hi, thank you for the talk, very inspiring. You showed the example migrating image to code. How about third-party integrations? Like, would it work having ready Figma or Sketch design to export the real images, the real paddings, the real colors? Would it work in theory? Do you have any plans to make these third-party integrations?
Good question. I think, do we have any plans to do third-party integration? I think we are definitely looking at like first screens, just so that we train the model to understand like the elements. But yes, I think the more context that you give it, especially like you said, Figma has, I think you can download a certain version of design to have like all the code and the positioning and like the color keys. So I think that's a really good approach. So I can't say yes, we'll work on it, but just say yes, we're looking into it. So yeah.
Hi. Any plans for the Gemini to help us with creating animations?
Good questions. Yeah, I think the logical next step is looking at animations, and so we want to make sure that it does well with static UI before we move on to more complex text. But yeah, I guess question for you. how would that look like? Like, do you today look at animations? Do you get specs from designers of the motion, video?
Actually, that's differs. Sometimes I get detailed spec, but I guess sometimes we kind of need like a boost of creativity since the designer doesn't deliver everything. So maybe that's a good field to inspire as well.
Okay, that's helpful. So what I'm hearing is that sometimes the designers have some spec and you would expect maybe that artifact, whether that's motion graph or a video, to be able to maybe produce something in code, but also maybe Gemini could be a good way to inspire what animation to build. So that's helpful. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, thank you for the press. So just a question for privacy of our project. So you know it's machine learning that know everything about our project. So and the company make many restrictions to use those kind of tools. So we don't know how to secure our projects or our apps from those kind of machine learning tools. So did you have any information about that? If, for example, I make an algorithm or I put Gemini I give the Gemini the authorization to know everything about my project, is another developer or Gemini can provide our algorithm for this developer, for example?
Yeah, I think, which is the last video I show, which is the enterprise compliance version of Gemini Ninja Studio, and I would encourage you, maybe you and your company, to take a look at that. So I believe that's addressing exactly the issue you're talking about. So they set it up in the way that it's private to your company so that it doesn't directly interface with the Gemini. But as of now, I think the public version of Ender Studio, it does send, I think it asks for your consent to send the code to the server, so that's how it can respond. Hopefully that answers your question, but I can get you the link after the talk.
Well,
Yes.
we have a question about the design system integration. When you create some content from the image, how do you integrate a very big design system with custom images, text views, buttons? Do you have to link every file in your prompt or link a folder, or is it working like magic?
Yes, at the moment, that's one of the limitations. So you can either work with the current file, or if not, you can use the context markers that I've shown, where you say, like, this is where my design system is defined, and this is how it will work. And if you do that, and you show Gemini a couple of examples, it will actually use your Gemini, like, it will use your design system. But yeah, at the moment is something that you will need to do recurrently, and we are working to find better ways to integrate other design systems that are not material, and you can work with those. Yes, we are looking into that as well.
Cool. All right. Thank you for listening and your questions. These are our LinkedIn if you'd like to stay connected with us. And we do have an Ender Studio office hour, I believe, at 1:35 today. So hope to see you all there. Thank you again.
Thank you.